Hi, everyone. My name is Shelby, and I am a project director at The Good Project. And today I'm going to be talking about engagement. What does it mean? As part of our professional development sessions that we've been doing here at The Good Project. So, as some of you might know, our Good Work framework has three components: excellence, ethics, and engagement. And we've spoken about ethics in one of our previous videos. And today we are focusing on engagement and what engagement means at the Good Project. So first, I just want you to take a second and think, what does engagement mean to you? What does this word mean? What do you think about when you think about engagement? And then once you've had a few seconds, a few minutes to think about that, think about, how does engagement relate to the Good Project? What do you think it means in terms of doing good work? When you think about good work and you think about engagement, how do you think those two terms might relate to one another? Okay. So engagement, what does it mean? What does it look like? There's a lot of ways we might think about this. Engagement could mean bursting with energy. It might mean having a sense of purpose and how you think about your purpose in the world and your citizenship. It might be, oh, I'm so engaged in something. I feel like time is flying by me. There's a lot of ways that people talk about engagement in the world. And it can mean all of those things and more. And so first, we really wanted to talk about some of the ways that people talk about engagement and sort of the research literature. And so first, because so many of you are teachers and educators, we wanted to talk about student engagement. And so there's a lot of different ways that they talk about student engagement in the literature, the academic literature. But a main framework that has sort of taken hold is this idea of student engagement being behavioral, emotional, and cognitive. And so behavioral engagement is sort of showing up to school, having positive conduct, you're attentive in class, you are really actually involved in your learning, you're not absent from class. That's behavioral engagement. Emotional engagement is that feeling of connectedness with your peers, your teachers, that feeling of belonging, that feeling of like, this is actually my classroom and I feel connected to my teachers. That's a sense of emotional engagement. And then cognitive engagement is a little bit harder to define sometimes, but it's really that sense of I am self-regulating my own learning. I have a sense of self-efficacy here. I am engaged cognitively in what we're doing. I value this learning process. It's sometimes a sense of growth mindset in terms of I think that I can learn here. It's all of those elements of I'm actually thinking and engaged cognitively in what we're doing. So those are the three elements that are often come up in the student engagement literature. And then there's a whole work engagement literature. So that's a whole different type of research literature. They often talk about how committed people feel to their work, whether they're actually coming and showing up. That's sort of that behavioral engagement. There's also this sense of emotional engagement that they sometimes talk about in terms of work. Are people happy or satisfied when they go to work? And then we also know that a sense of work engagement is really connected to well-being. And so there's this sense of, yes, are you engaged? And then if you are engaged, that you actually are benefiting from that, and that there's a sense of well-being that comes from being engaged at work. So as I said, those were two of the elements that came from the research literature, the student engagement literature and also the work engagement literature. But now I want to turn to how the Good Project has really thought about engagement. And interestingly, our original framework at the Good Project did not have engagement as part of the 3 E's. So originally, our framework only focused on ethics and excellence and sort of the intertwined elements that ethics and excellence brought to good work. But notably, originally our work started and we were doing about 2,000 interviews with professions, all different types of professions. But eventually we started working with people who we considered to be in the caring profession. So that is people like nurses, teachers, people who work every day in an interpersonal relationship with others. And it wasn't until we actually focused more on these caring professions that it became very evident to us that people need to be engaged in their work in order to do excellent and ethical good work. So it really became clear to us that we needed to add this third element of the framework of our 3 E's to consider what good work fully is. And so that was when we ended up adding this third E to the framework. So that came at the end of the development of the good work framework. And it really became clear because it was clear with these people in the caring professions that if they didn't have engagement, if they weren't engaged in their work, they were very likely to burn out. And that was, if they were not engaged, they were going to be ended up leaving their work. They were going to burn out from their work, even if they were ethical, even if they were doing excellent work. Sometimes being an ethical, excellent worker is not enough, and that can actually lead to that burnout unless you are engaged in your work. So just because we added engagement, over 20 years ago now in our work, it doesn't mean that our understanding of engagement hasn't changed over time and that it won't continue to change over time. So originally, when we defined engagement in our work, we sort of understood it as this idea of finding flow in your work. And so that sort of gets to that idea of time is flying. You're just sort of there and you're so engaged in your work that things are just moving and grooving and you're just getting through your work and sort of not aware of what's happening. Then, we sort of move towards this definition of work. Engagement in work is enjoying what you're doing, you're valuing your work, you want to be there, this sense of emotional engagement that we talked about before. But as we've continued on and really talked more about engagement and done more research with different people, we've really come more to a sense of engagement being a sense of meaning and purpose in work, the sense of fulfillment, and really this idea that you might not always be emotionally engaged. You might not always be finding flow or enjoying your work, but because you have this sense of fulfillment and purpose that's driving you, you still feel engaged in your work. So that purpose and sense of meaning is helping you feel engaged and driving your overall sort of motivation to be working in your field. So we've really moved more towards this sense of purpose, this sense of engagement over time, this sense of purpose and meaning really driving your sense of engagement. So obviously there are many ways to be engaged, many ways to find meaning, many ways to find purpose in your work. Some of the ways that we talk about this at the Good Project based on our variety of frameworks are in terms of mission, values, and responsibility. So in terms of a mission, what are the overall goals and values of an organization or a school or your own personal mission for your life? Do you have a common purpose? Is the place that you're working aligned with your own goals? Do you have the same mission in terms of what you want to do? That is one way that people end up being engaged in the work because they know that the place that they're working shares their own purpose and goals. Second, sort of, in tandem with mission, this sense of values. Do your values match? Maybe your values don't match with the overall mission of the place that you're working, but that your values match with your coworkers. They match with your boss. They match with other people that you're working with. And that's enough for you to feel engaged with the work that you're doing. So maybe it's okay that the mission is not exactly in line with what you're doing, but you feel very engaged in your work because you know that your team shares your same values or something like that. Or the people that you're helping share your same values. And that's enough for you to feel engaged in your work. And then what about responsibilities? That's also another way that people really oftentimes feel engaged or fulfilled in their work. So maybe their mission is not aligned with what they're actually hoping to do. Maybe their values are different than their team, but they feel that the responsibility that they feel through their work to the people that they're serving, maybe either immediately or maybe their work is serving a larger goal or ideal in society. Maybe it's policy work, maybe it's research, maybe it's something broader, or maybe it's an immediate work. Maybe you're doing interpersonal work like teaching or nursing. whoever you're serving, maybe that sense of responsibility is fulfilling your sense of engagement because you feel that the impact you're making, the purpose you feel in terms of fulfilling those responsibility helps you engage with your work every day. So you keep going because that sense of fulfillment is to your responsibilities. Ultimately, though, why should we even care about thinking about engagement? And really, one of the reasons is because we know that engagement is very low, particularly in the United States right now. So currently, only 35% of US workers are considered engaged at work. So we want to think about how can we improve this sense of engagement for both current workers, but also our future workers who are our current students. How can we help them feel more engaged in work, particularly because we know engagement in work is connected to overall well-being, and we have a large mental health crisis on our hands. So we want to have this sense of engagement because we can both feel engaged, and that can be connected to our emotional satisfaction, and it can be connected to our overall well-being. And then also because we know that 61% of Gen Zers want a job that has a purpose beyond making a profit. So these people that we're teaching, that we're working with, oftentimes these kids, they really want a purposeful and meaningful job. And so we need to be thinking about what is their sense of engagement and how can we help them find that sense of engagement in their work and what might that look like for them. So thinking about how that might be fulfilled. Now, in terms of an activity, so this is something that if you're in a group, this is something you could do with your other teachers, with your other group mates, however you might think about this in terms of the work that you're doing as a team. And if you're alone, this is something that you can go and do alone and just sort of reflect on your own, watch the video alone, and then do some own personal reflection. So what you want to do is open up the following slide deck that we have. You can either go directly to this URL, this short URL at this link right here, or you can use this QR code right here to get to the slide deck. So what the activity is going into this slide deck, watching a video, maybe watching all of the videos if you have time, or if you're in teams, each team picking a video to watch, and then using that video and then reflecting on a thinking routine based on that video. And the thinking routine is thinking about what insights the video offers you about student engagement, what puzzles you have about your own practices related to student engagement now, and then what actions might you take now to encourage student engagement. And why are we thinking about student engagement rather than work engagement, you might ask? Because as we've talked about before, the work that students are doing now is their good work. The work that they are doing as student is their form of good work. And we want to help them find meaning and fulfillment in the work they're doing as students, because that is the way that they are being good workers now. And if we can help them find that element of engagement and fulfillment in their good work as students, then we're hoping we can help them find ways to think about being fulfilled and engaged in their future work as future good workers as well. So we want to think about how can we think about engagement with students so that we can also think in the future about engagement as workers. So let's go look at the actual URL right now. So it is a set of Google Slides, and there are 5 different groups and 5 different videos. And each video looks at a different element of engagement in the classroom. They're all different pictures of practice from different classrooms. So you can, again, if you're alone, you might pick one of the videos, you might pick all 5 to watch. If you're in different teams, for example, you might all break up into these different groups, like we're going to do in the synchronous PD. And then it's writing down some insights that you have. So just grab a piece of paper, write down your insights, and really reflect on the video that you saw and how it makes you think about student engagement. Once you've had a chance to go through that video, come back and really reflect. What insights did you have? What did you see in action in that video in terms of student engagement? What, maybe very small moves was the teacher making to help the students be engaged? It's not always big things. It's sometimes the smallest little things that they're doing to help students be engaged. Then puzzles. What puzzles did you have about your own practice? Maybe in relation to the video. What did you learn about your own practices in relation to student engagement? And if you're with other team members, what did you learn about their practices? And how do your own practices relate, or maybe how are they different from team members' practices in relation to student engagement? And then finally, what actions will you take now in relation to student engagement? Do you think you'll change what you do based on the video or videos you saw? Do you think you'll stay the same in terms of what you're doing? Are there things that you might have learned from other people? What actions will you take now or not take now? And finally, finishing up this professional development session, we want you to think, what did you used to think engagement was? And you can write this down on a piece of paper. I used to think engagement was whatever. And now I think engagement is this. So how has your thinking about engagement potentially changed? Maybe it's stayed the same, and that's okay too. But just take a moment to reflect on your thinking about engagement. And thank you so much for listening to this professional development and engaging with us about the idea of engagement. And we hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.